Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Speedify Live Office Hours. I'm your host, Alex Gizes, and this is Kevin Cunningham.
Hello.
He is the lead developer on the Speedify app. So, if you guys have questions about Speedify, today's the day they get answered. We are live, so, we see all the questions and comments that you put underneath the video. So if you got questions about, Speedify and how to use them, post it there. Hey, Amir, see, Amir gets it. He posts stuff. We see it. So that's how you interact with us. If you enjoy this, go ahead and, follow, like, subscribe, and then click the little bell if you're on YouTube so that you get notifications, because otherwise you subscribe and it doesn't bother telling you when we're live. All right, here's the first question. Any plans to add a split tunnel function other than the one in the app?
Yes. Yeah, that's something we're working on, kind of expanding to offer a lot more there. If you are on one of the desktop platforms with the CLI, like Windows or Linux, you can add custom rules currently through the CLI. If you have specific things that you want to have bypass or not go through the VPN, there's rules there for doing that. But yeah, we're working on adding a lot more into all the platforms and right in the UI that you can pick different things that you want to have go around the VPN.
Yeah. So we're really close to some really cool things there on enhancing the split tunneling, or the bypass, as we tend to call it in the app. All right. All right, so let's go on and talk about how to use Speedify. Let's go. So, Kevin, how does Speedify manage to combine all of your internet connections together?
So Speedify acts as a VPN on your device, so it appears as kind of a fake internet connection on whatever device you're running on, and acts as the best route to the internet, so that anytime your applications, your web browser or whatever other applications you're using on your device are sending traffic to the internet, they're sending it into the Speedify VPN. And behind the scenes, we're making connections back to our VPN server, the Speedify server, over each of your internet connections. And so that allows us to decide where we want to send your application traffic. And we can split it up over multiple connections at the same time. And the server puts everything back in order, reassembles everything, and sends it out to the internet to its destination. So that allows us to split single sockets from a single application across multiple internet connections and give you more speed.
And it's a VPN, huh?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, it has encryption. So we're securely encrypting everything between the client and the server. So if you're on questionable networks or anything like that, any of that traffic will also be encrypted.
Nice. All right. I'm here. Any plans to increase the free data usage, the free data for Iranians? Not at this time. We'll pull up some stats later. We were well over 500,000 Iranians, each using the 5 gigabytes a month. We're into just huge numbers. So that's where we're at. We have lots and lots of servers that have ended out essentially dedicated and no revenue at all for us to supporting the cause in Iran, and we're happy to do it. But I think we're supporting a lot of people right now, so I don't think there's going to be a big increase anytime soon. All right, we should talk about what's new in Speedify. So let's go on to that. Amir says, "Did you know you are the only VPN working here? Thanks for that." I did not know that. We are in a battle of cat and mouse. There are moments where, there are some mornings where we don't work over cellular and in Iran, whatever. So it's not just the servers. We are actively doing work to make sure that it stays working. William asks, when will IPv6 matter?
It's kind of a broad question. It does matter. But if you mean in the context of Speedify, if you're asking when we're going to support IPv6, I think we're working on it, but I don't have a definite timeline. We have some IPv6 support in there. But yeah,
the software supports IPv6 completely today.
Yeah.
But no one seems to care. The hosting providers, a lot of them still don't have IPv6. There was all that news a couple of weeks ago that IPv6 internet split into 2 different internets right now. I don't know if that got fixed now because it was in the news. That a bunch of the providers who a bunch of the backbones refused to carry IPv6 traffic because they thought they should be paid extra for it, and Google wasn't going to pay them extra. So half of IPv6 land couldn't get to Google. So I'm sorry, that makes the whole thing useless.
We can blame Brian for IPv6 there.
Yes. All right. And so in conclusion, it is all Brian Purdel's fault. I don't know. The software supports it. There are a couple servers that we have hidden off that we use that support IPv6, so we know it works. But it just seems to be a mess in the real world. I'm actually confused how big a mess it still is. Did you hear about the new Raspberry Pi kit?
I did not.
I did not. How can there be a Raspberry Pi kit I haven't heard about? I'm horrified. May have to stop the live stream to Google. Tell me about the new Raspberry Pi kit. What's his name? Upton was saying that they're just not going to start working on a new Raspberry Pi this year. Not only was it not going to ship this year, they just weren't going to start designing. He didn't see any point. He wanted to wait till the chip shortage was over. So
maybe it's repackaging something that was already existing. I don't know. I know they've had some of those, whatever those model numbers were, of the different little PC things that you can.
I started typing into Google new Raspberry, and it fills in Girl Scout cookie, and I'm completely distracted with no memory of what I was looking for before.
Raspberry Pi desktop, maybe that. I don't know. I saw something.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's a debug kit, I think. Okay. All right. Brian says, we use a bunch of different hosting partners, and they either support IPv6 differently or don't support it at all, which makes rolling out IPv6 difficult. Yeah, so our servers need a lot. Like when we go on IPv6, we need a lot of IPv6 addresses, which IPv6 supports. They're cool with, a single computer having thousands and thousands of IPs. And Speedify servers want those thousands of IPs. And it just turns out that a lot of the hosting providers were like, oh, we thought you'd only need 16 or something. Like, no. So it's a lot of problems just with their software for setting up servers and stuff. So, all right. VStream says, could I combine Wi-Fi and data on my Android phone and then tether that through USB to my laptop and then combine that with Speedify my laptop with a physical cable?
So you can. There's a couple caveats. So the built-in tethering on Android won't let you do that, but there are third-party Android apps that you could USB tether and share Speedify running on your phone. But then tethering that to another computer that's also running Speedify, you're now running Speedify over top of Speedify. So it technically would work, but there's some weirdness.
I've had surprisingly few problems.
Yeah,
I run Speedify on top of Speedify, and
it can work, but it's you're delegating some of the decisions to another Speedify. Where if you want to have a full view of all the different connections, it might be good to get them all on one device. So it can work, but it might not be ideal. I mean, there'd be some extra overhead to it, certainly. But it's possible.
The big problem here that we are running into is the built-in tethering on Android or iPhone just shares one of the connections. Now, iPhone, it shares the LTE directly. On Android these days, it shares the Wi-Fi if it's working, which is, I don't think it's ever been what I've wanted. It's very irritating. So I end up setting my Android phone to never connect to Wi-Fi so that my tethering will always send me over cellular. And I think it has to be the exact opposite of what they meant to have happen when they set up this feature. I think they were trying to make us use less cellular. And they made me use much, much more. So it's a foolish, badly done feature. But either way, tethering goes right around Speedify and right out the internet. We are working on something, but we're 2 months away from being able to show something cool to let you essentially tether through Speedify, and it's going to be cool. All right, Brian is back saying that he expects we'll get IPv6 support across most of our servers by summer. All right. Yeah, there are a lot of people reporting that IPv6 is much faster than IPv4. And looking at the technical spec, I don't see why that would be, but it's clearly true. Because I see everybody's graphs. All right, Amir says, can you tell when the new bypass feature is coming to Windows version?
A definite timeline, but I think soon, sometime in the next couple months. I think there'll be a couple phases of it But yeah, we're working on it coming up. We will have some enhancements coming in the UI soon, but the expanded options we're still working on. So yeah, sometime in the next couple months. But yeah, if you're on Windows already, you can go to the CLI and put in custom rules right now in the Speedify CLI if you want to. If you have certain things that you want to bypass.
Oh yeah, he's on Windows.
Yeah.
Should we? Yes, Speedify CLI. Yeah, there's a PDF in there in the install directory. He's on Windows, so
right.
Yeah, if you just run the Speedify CLI, it'll spill out a whole usage.
Yeah, and streaming bypass, I think is the command you're looking for.
Bypass, and I think you can add various URLs. So yeah, give that a try. That's right. Brian has taken over the chat. All right. Imad asks, how to increase speed in Venezuela? What server do you get, by the way?
Yeah,
I've certainly tried different servers. You might, we're trying to connect the closest server usually, but I think there's some chance that Miami might turn out to be faster.
Yeah, it might be pushing you to Brazil, and that might not be the best option for you. So yeah, you might, doing Miami or something like that might work better. So yeah, try different servers, try different transport modes in Speedify, but particularly over long distances, or if you have a lot of loss or something, try the UDP mode. That might work better in some cases. But yeah, I don't know what connections you have and what speeds you're seeing already, so it's hard to comment.
Yeah, interesting that the server closest to you might not be the fastest. Yeah, so if you look at a map of, sort of Central and South America with the fiber optics, the fast internet is this fiber optic cable that's offshore, right, circling South America, and it cuts into each country. So in some cases, I think it starts in Miami and snakes all the way down. So I think there are really a lot of cases where Miami is right next door. It is a laser pulse away. Speed of light's higher, but it's actually not going through more routers or anything to get there. So tech is whack indeed, Marby. All right. Ryan says, my organization would like the ability to run our own server in AWS. Is that something Speedify currently supports or plans to support? We've got a few people doing that. Question for Brian. It's closer to a plans to support, but contact us directly in support. We've done things before. There are some people running their own servers.
But yeah, it's not something we typically offer.
We don't typically offer it. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Everybody's saying hi. All right. So can you talk any about what's coming next? When's the next release of Speedify and what's going to be in it?
So yeah, we just did Speedify 13 a couple weeks ago, and we've had a couple bug fix releases of different issues that we saw with that over the past couple weeks. So I think we're a few weeks away from the next Speedify release. We're working away on that, maybe a couple weeks. Yeah, we're starting to lay the groundwork for some of the enhanced, bypass, split tunneling stuff that we talked about. There'll be some improvements with the UI coming with that. We're focusing more on some of the performance areas and different performance problems people have been reporting, and particularly stuff with Starlink, looking a little more there and trying to clean up some performance things where we can improve performance, improve failover when things fail, things like that. So we're looking at revisiting a lot of those cases and trying to tighten things up as much as we can. And I'm trying to think what else if I'm missing something. Always lots of other little.
Any Starlink specific stuff. So we got the live stream going. So I don't know if any of you noticed, we used to do this on both Twitch and YouTube. Now we're really just on YouTube here. Are we using our Twitch channel to stream 24/7 rooftop Um, so we have multiple cameras on our roof and a Starlink. And holy cow, the Starlink, the dish moved. Look at that. And we have a Starlink dish, and we are live streaming over the Starlink dish, gathering all sorts of statistics to improve performance. And, there's like multiple cameras. I want to see oh, maybe it didn't move. Maybe that's just the other camera. So I say, hey, let's go look at the expressway. And it switches cameras and we look at the expressway, or I can go look at the bridge. And a few seconds later, hey, there it is, Ben Franklin Bridge. So we got cameras all over our roof. It is great fun going on at City Hall. We're playing chill music, although I'm leaving it off these days. That new building's going to completely block our view of the Ben Franklin Bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, it might.
Let's go back to bridge. Yeah, look at that. That concrete tower is new. That's obviously the fire escape for a new building, which is going to completely block our view of the bridge. Oh, brutal. Brutal. This is the worst. I'll complain to City Hall. All right. I don't know how to say your name, but you love Speedify, and we appreciate that. Has having a Starlink improved how Speedify interacts with or without a Starlink? Question for you.
Yeah, we definitely. It's still work in progress that we're constantly trying to improve things. But yeah, we've already put some improvements into previous versions of Speedify based on some of the things we've seen with the Starlink, particularly with how it fails and when the signal drops out and things like that. Trying to handle that better and make sure things are acting as smoothly as we can, and make sure we get the most performance out of the Starlink. Which I think some of those improvements will benefit other cases too. But yeah, the Starlink is definitely kind of a unique type of connection with how much it drops out and the amount of speed that it can get and how variable it is. It's not common for lots of other connections to behave like that unless you're driving around or something. So yeah, we're definitely continuing to look at the Starlink and make improvements to Speedify based off of that.
All right. I'm from Iran. The Speedify filter does not connect to the first mobile provided solution. I would say try some different servers, see if some work for you. As I said earlier, we are in a game of cat and mouse. They are constantly trying to block us. We are constantly doing things to get unblocked. I know. Wait around. They change what they do to block us. We change what we do to get unblocked. And there are other servers. You can choose our server list and dig in. Try servers you haven't tried before. Try servers that aren't the closest because perhaps they've tried harder to block the closest. William says, bad weather today. Going to be some stream emergencies to save. Yes, let's go back. Yeah, it is. It's an ugly, rainy day. It was very strange. At lunch, we were all checking the weather on our phones and seeing entirely different things. One person was their phone was saying it was about to snow, and other people were saying the rain was about to stop, and other people were saying it was going to rain all day. Great confusion here at Speedify HQ about what kind of weather is coming, but none of it looked fantastic. So, blah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I see the Starlink having a bad time in the rain. Is it worse today, Kevin? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not sure. I haven't.
We should have some stats about that. I will go look. So the Starlinks are, by the way, between 12 and 30 gigahertz, I believe is correct. Which means they don't get through much. Really, a leaf will block them. Plastic doesn't. That frequency goes right through plastic. But like, any human body part would just completely kill the signal. It's pretty weak. It is in fact not Always Sunny in Philadelphia. All right. Cool. All right. So let's go on to company updates and talk about stats a little bit. Let's go. All right. I believe we have some stats from Iran. And I see we have a couple of users from Iran here. And 562,000 users in the last 7 days. Over 300 terabytes. And of course, that goes through our servers. So it's, well over half a exabyte. X is next, right? And or peta. Sorry, whatever. Been a long time. All right, Stream emergency saves 82,000. That's the number of people who are on like VoIP calls or video conferences. And something broke, but Speedify managed to switch them to the other connection in time. So that's a lot. That's interesting. Look at yesterday. Maybe something's blocking us a little bit yesterday. Or is it earlier today? That last blue hump sure seems a little smaller, doesn't it? A little less data. Not a big change in users, but a little less data. It's a good sign stream emergency saves have been about the same in all this data. I think so. I mean, I think it'd be okay if it was surging higher and higher. But the truth is, if someone is web browsing, which I think most, you're checking the news, and we save you, it actually doesn't show up as a stream emergency save. We're only doing if it looks like an actual call. So I think it's a measure of how much people are making voice calls. I think most people are probably not making voice calls out of Iran. I think they're texting, they're social networking, they're downloading. That one graph, the blue graph, actually showed upload and download, but you can't tell because the uploads out of Iran are so tiny. People are mostly just downloading. That blue graph, believe it or not, has data sent and received. The blue is downloaded into Iran, and there's a green along the bottom that's just not really visible of uploads. I mean, they're really just asking for stuff, downloading it. It's well over 90% downloads, the traffic into Iran. I think that's all I have to say about that. Again, we are live. If you have questions for Kevin, the brains behind Speedify. It's not really a brains kind of operation. This is your big chance. Post questions. We'll make them answer them. If not, we'll go to the mailbag where we've collected some of the better questions that we think people have asked. So let's go to that. All right, let's see our first question. I just bought the 3-year pass subscription last month. Woo! I tried Speedify with a LAN and a Wi-Fi connection that should collectively bond nothing less than 10 megabits per second for my 5 to 6 hours of live streaming. To my disappointment, Speedify could hardly give me a stable live stream on YouTube at 3.5 megabits. That was on Sunday, Christmas Eve. I had to disconnect Speedify and use one of the internet providers like that. Secondly, for a regular House of Worship live streaming, running a speed test using Speedify gives me way less than the amount of bandwidth I should get when combining internet, LAN, up to 20 megabits, and Wi-Fi, 5 megabits. I had to use my LAN up to 20 megabits like that. This makes my second not-so-good experience with Speedify. I need to know if I'm doing something wrongly or probably my location is not enabled. I've watched your YouTube videos on how to combine internet, so if you have a solution, I'm all ears.
All right. So yeah, this person, the location was, we alluded to some of this before with some of the questions, but yeah, location was a big factor. Yeah, there were no location where they weren't really near any of our Speedify servers.
Were they in the southern hemisphere somewhere, or
They were in Africa.
yeah?
So we don't have a lot of coverage in there. We have South Africa and basically Europe. So yeah, I believe they were trying to connect all the way to the US from Africa. So they're connecting to servers that were far away. They're comparing their speeds that they get in their country to what they're getting through the Speedify server. So when you're connecting over far distances, that certainly decreases, how much performance you can get from a connection. So by getting them to connect to closer servers, and I think we had them switch the transport mode as well, they were able to get some better performance out of their connections. I think they ended up going with a server that was closer in Europe and seeing better performance there.
All right. Good job, Kevin. Let's go to the next question. Good day. I'm just curious. I have a MikroTik router configured with 3 different connections to load balance and as a failover. Will Speedify detect those different connections through the MikroTik if my PC is connected to the LAN port on the MikroTik? I have 3 internet sources at my house. One is a fiber line. The other 2 are 5G LTE devices. I have a MikroTik router that's been configured to use all 3 of my internet connections as a load balancer. So when one connection is fully used, it switches over to the next one. If one of the 3 goes down, it automatically switches over without disconnecting. So this is how my local network works, and Wi-Fi, everything is handled by the MikroTik router. It has 5 ports. 1 to 3 is ISP 1, 2, 3, and to get the IPs from the provider, port 4 and 5, the LAN ports to the local network. So I want to know is, will Speedify detect the 3 connections on the MikroTik? I understand how to add multiple connections, just want to know if it will work through my MikroTik, as I would like to keep it that way.
Yeah. So what Speedify is typically looking for in a device is it's looking for actual adapters for each internet connection. So in most cases, it's not going to detect if you have multiple connections through a router. So this guy has a router with 3 different connections on it. Speedify is not going to be able to know that you have the 3 different connections on the router.
Yeah, you could use a managed switch if your operating system supports VLANs. I certainly know Linux does. Does Windows these days? Windows a little
I don't know.
I've had problems in the
special
past
software or something for that.
I needed special software and it didn't work that well. But I vaguely think that they fixed some things in Windows 11. So if you support VLANs, a managed switch can make each of those connections combine down the one wire, as tagged packets, as they say, plug it into your computer, and your computer will create virtual internet connections for each one of them. And then Speedify will find the virtual connections, combine them into our virtual connection, and you can be good to go. So we certainly know a lot of people, mostly Linux users, that are doing that. That have an Ethernet switch, lots of Ethernet internet connections connected into it, and just one wire to their computer.
Yeah, and there's some other people that they have multiple gateways on the same network, and a workaround there is you could have multiple adapters plugged into your computer for the same network and set each one to use a different gateway. Is another thing that some people use. Not quite as nice as just having the single cable that handles all your connections, but is another workaround.
William asks, what would make a distant server have lower bandwidth? Increased latency makes sense, but why is bandwidth also affected?
So, yeah, as you go, particularly with how the TCP protocol works, over the longer distance, if a packet gets dropped, it takes longer for it to resend it and retransmit it over a longer latency connection. And there's different congestion protocols with TCP, but in general, having loss will decrease the speed pretty significantly while it waits for that retransmitted packet to go through. That happens often enough, it keeps the speed low enough that it won't climb back up as it's waiting too much of the time for these retransmitted packets to go through. And since a lot of the internet works over TCP, I know Google's trying to change that with Quick. But yeah, there's still a lot of TCP usage on the internet, so that can really affect things over long distances. And there's also just more hops that you're going through on the internet, more chances for congestion, more chances for other things to happen in between that could affect the speed as well.
There's that famous equation for bandwidth over TCP, and it's just latency and loss, right?
Yeah.
Those are the only two factors, actually. I always suspected it's not quite right, but all right. Amir asks, which transport mode do you think is best for users in Iran?
Yeah, I would try them all. I could see cases where UDP might be the best if you're having, lots of latency or packet loss out to different servers. But then also doing things with the multi TCP transport where we have multiple connections going. If they're limiting how much a particular TCP socket's able to use, maybe having multiple sockets might make things better. So yeah, I would try different servers and try different transport modes and see what works best for you. I don't know, that might vary from person to person and what connections they have and what server they're connecting to.
All right. Tomorrow, we're having another live stream. That's February 23rd. It's Switchboard Live. We had them once upon a time, Rudy. They do that cool service where you can live stream to them and they'll live stream to everywhere. And they have all kinds of cool sharing stuff where, if you're a guest on a show, you can let the show stream to your channel just while you're the guest, but not other times, and where you can set up, a religious channel that streams whichever of the churches is live at this moment, and each of the churches can have their own channel, and you can have a combined one. They do all sorts of neat advanced stuff with, enabling you to stream everywhere all at once. It's a neat service. And they're Philly based, and we'll be talking with them tomorrow. So that's going to be fun. Then, of course, next Wednesday, we'll do this Q&A again. I think it's Mike Kane. So that will be great. Okay. Oh, Roy has a question. I have 2 phones on the same network, T-Mobile. Would it be reasonable to bond LTE on one phone and 5G on the other phone from the same provider? You will get very variable results. Like sometimes it'll work perfectly, right? Because if you don't know where the bottleneck is, right? The cellular providers hide everything. They might connect to different towers. They might connect the same tower. There might be plenty of bandwidth in the neighborhood, right? Each phone might be able to get as much air as it wants, or maybe it's so short on time slots that you're actually adding the second phone just gets you less slots.
Yeah, so I'd certainly say if you're doing 4G on one and 5G on the other, you have more chance of success than if you were to just do both 5G on both or both 4G on both.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But yeah, there's still using connections from the same provider, there's still chances that interference there or limitations.
4G and 5G, that's probably pretty much separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's right. Happy Wednesday. The week is flying by. We've already finished Wednesday's episode of Speedify Office Hours. So it is flying by. Thank you for being here, Kevin. I know you are super busy trying to get the next release of Speedify out. I feel guilty even pulling you aside to answer these questions, but people need to know. Inquiring minds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Of course.
Thank you to everyone in the audience. We really appreciate you guys showing up and listening to me babble and Kevin correctly answer questions. So I think that's about it. So thank you, and I'll see you all online. Good night, everyone.